John Zannis, Taylor Kyles. We're doing this free agency thing that we've been doing every day this week, and I think I think this is the first move that universally Patriots fans seem to be happy with. This might be the first impact move. I'm not saying Juju's not, but you did view it as a Jacoby Juju swap. Signing Mike Gesicki here to a 1-year deal. That's probably the only drawback to this, Taylor, that you don't have control for a couple of years because Hunter Henry's going to be gone after this year, and you're going to have to address the tight end position once again. But you'll get to that when you get to that. We're going to tell you all about. We'll get a little scouting report here from Taylor on Gesicki, what he brings, what he does, and we'll talk about some other things. A surprise cut today by the Patriots. Does that perhaps tip you off to what their draft strategy might be heading into the NFL draft? We'll see. We'll talk about that. We want to take some of your questions as well, and just hear from you and what you kind of think about the Patriots offseason to date and what else they need to do. We will tell you again before we get started. The show, as always, is brought to you by our exclusive wagering partner over here at CLNS Media Network, and that is FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. Sign up FanDuel.com/Boston. All right, let's get to Gesicki. This is a guy we talked about a little, Taylor, only because he liked stuff and followed stuff, and everyone loves to kind of eyeball emoji. What does that mean? What does it mean?
They were just trolling us half the time. Honestly, they know what they're doing.
I think they sometimes know, but in this case, it actually turned out that this was happening, and it happened, and it's something. And again, what you can say, I think unequivocally, absolute upgrade over Jonnu Smith in terms of what you're going to get out of Gesicki. Tell me why you like this, or tell me why you don't like it, or why you're skeptical.
So one, I think we mentioned this on the show before with Juju. You got somebody in the building who already has a history of production and who's been very good. So that's one reassuring thing because like we've also said with Jonnu, he was a bit more of a projection. You knew you were probably going to have to get scheme touches and things like that. But obviously the contract he received, they were hoping to see some type of jump from him that never happened. Now, Gesicki is a very different type of player, but he gives you someone who's been productive anytime he's been used to his strengths. Even Mike McDaniel last year acknowledged we are not using Gesicki to the best of his abilities, despite the fact that they franchised him when he expressed that he really wasn't interested in being on that version of the Dolphins. Now, what he brings to the Patriots, one thing that I mentioned with Dalton Schultz, that was kind of my top potential option for the Patriots, was the versatility. Now, not necessarily as a run blocker and a pass catcher, because Gesicki is almost exclusively a pass catcher, has vocally said that he's not really a big fan of blocking, but that just means that you got to find some way to use him to the best of his ability. So you can spread him around the offense, put him out wide. Really, he's a big slot receiver more than he is a tight end. That's where he lines up on most of the snaps he takes.
Yep.
Sometimes he'll be in line, but that's really when they want to go play action and get those crossing routes that we always see from the Patriots. So not only do you get that versatility where O'Brien can say, yes, if this is a group that doesn't have good safeties, we're going to kill them with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. And you're not even going to remember that, if, God forbid, the team goes into the season without a Judy or a Hopkins, you can still have pieces where if a defense has people that you can exploit, which are typically linebackers and safeties, he's the guy who can do that. He's massive. He's got a really big catch radius, not just because he's big, but also because he's not afraid to extend outside of his body and make tough throws. He can make awkward adjustments. And there was one touchdown he had a couple years ago against the Chiefs where Tua threw it to him in triple coverage downfield. He came down with it. Like, the guy is a one-man highlight reel when it comes to the catch point. So what you're getting is a consistent big body who gives you a mismatch weapon that you can use and find where he's going to be best. I think it's an exciting matchup with Hunter Henry, who isn't the best inline blocker. But remember, the Patriots are still a very good rushing team with him as the main inline guy. So yes, you can upgrade that spot. But in terms of receiving, which is really what matters at the end of the day, I think he got a really good 1-2 punch with these guys.
Yeah, and I think what it's not lost. It's just it bears repeating with Gesicki. He's more than just like a capable, athlete and a runner, someone who can run and this and that. He dominated the combine when he came out, and it really kind of opened some eyes. He had a 97 athleticism score. Number one tight end by far, 4.54 40. Again, just so you know, for the guys you've seen in Foxborough do it well, Gronk was in the high 4.6s, and he who must not be named was a low 4.6 guy. And those guys could move. He had a 41.5-inch vertical, 10.9 broad jump, 6.76 3-cone drill. This is an athlete. Okay. Yeah. These are measurables that you'd be happy with for some receivers, and again, he's not a traditional tight end, as you said, a move tight end, slot guy. But again, as you said, when utilized to his strengths, there's things he can do here. This is a legit playmaker who can make plays. As you said, he can go up and get it. He's got the catch radius. He's tall. He's athletic as hell. And so again, it feels like you've got a lot of guys who can operate a little bit here in the movement of the field. One of the things he didn't do great was he's not a yak guy despite his speed, which again, I'm not sure if that's just based on the type of throws and the plays that he was making. This is a guy who did not have a lot of broken tackles last year. So again, I'm not sure how much of that is based on they ran him for jump balls up the sidelines, XYZ, mainly in the red zone, and there just weren't very many opportunities to get the ball and go, because you would think somebody with his athletic profile would be able to do that a little bit better.
Yeah, so actually, I fired off a tweet. Literally, this signing had happened half an hour before I even considered, rolling over, just check my phone while I'm half asleep to see what's going on. And I had to immediately jump and react. I did say that he was a yak guy because off the top of my head, I remembered a couple big runs that he had. Yeah. But then when you actually look, he's not. The reason is he doesn't have a ton of wiggle. Like Hernandez, he was big and he was fast and everything.
He could have been a halfback. Hernandez was totally different type of athlete.
His movement skills were ridiculous. Yes. And it's why he was such a rare talent. Yeah. Whereas Gesicki is more of a Hunter Henry in the open field, where he may stiff arm you, and if a guy's isn't really gonna try to tackle him, they throw themselves and they don't wrap up, he's probably gonna slide off, and he's just really big. So when he's in open space and he has room in a straight line, then he's gonna pick up a pretty good amount of yards because he's not slow. He's just a bigger guy who isn't, as dynamic a mover as some of the guys like Kelsey, who are really good at slipping people. So that's why I say he's not really a Jonnu. He's not an AH. He's not the kind of guy where you want him as the shallow option. He's the guy who's going downfield. And if he's got a little guy on him, you're saying, hey, when he's covered, he's still open. So not a good yak guy. He had some opportunities. That Miami offense is wide open. But at the same time, they had him running a lot of overs. And he's good at finding that space and zone. But again, just not really a guy who's dynamic after the catch for sure.
So what's Bill O'Brien going to do with him? Yeah, what type of formations, what type of sets? Will they run two tight end with Hunter Henry? Will they really just line him up as another slot? Because again, we're talking about Juju. This is what's a little crowded here. You can line Gesicki out wide if you wanted to and try to get a mismatch and see if you'll get a linebacker or someone to follow him. They've done that with Gronk in the past, and that's something that the Patriots will do. But that's a wrinkle, not something necessarily you're going to do kind of as your base. But you have a lot of guys now who you think all qualify as kind of slot. We talked about potential internal replacements of Jacoby Myers that included Kendrick Bourne, potentially even Tyquan Thornton playing there, even though I think Thornton's going to have to probably be outside. And now you've got Juju, who really operates as a big slot. Now you've got Gesicki, who operates as a big slot. How many slots can you have?
So I understand that sentiment. It's very easy when it's a lot of guys who fit in one spot, you're kind of confused. So here's one thing to always remember. When you think of all the Patriots greats, only Randy Moss and Brandon Cooks is only a year. They were the only guys where it's that was that X that we had that was really good. The offense runs through the slot, through the Z, through the tight end, through the running backs out of the backfield. That's where you're getting all the production because those are the positions where it's easier to get guys the ball in space. Now, like I said, Gesicki's not the kind of guy where you necessarily want him trying to be a yards after catch guy. But what Bill O'Brien can do is, so you come out in those 12 personnel packages. What he'll typically do is put the guys on the most outside who are kind of the receivers that you're not as worried about. So, if it's Juju as one of the two receivers, it's probably going to be him inside with the tight ends down the seam just so you have size, and then another receiver outside to run a hitch as an outlet or something like that. So by keeping Gesicki and Hunter Henry and any of these guys inside the formation, That's a lot of people you got to think about and be worried about either going over your heads or getting the ball underneath and then making a big play. And then when Gesicki was in Miami, they ran more 12 personnel like, by far than any other team because Gesicki was essentially their third wide receiver, second or third wide receiver, depending on who was healthy at the time. So what they would do a lot is have him inside the numbers, but as the outside most receiver to the real tight end side. And they'd have him run, deep outs. They'd have him run crossers, sometimes a fade where he can body guys. And they'd really just have him be an option where if you saw a defensive back or there was even opening, you kind of just throw him the ball and give him an opportunity. You could put him in the slot and have him run up the seam. He's really that intermediate guy where anytime you see a good mismatch or if the defense bites up because they're scared of Juju taking the ball and, having too much space, you pop it right up to him even if someone's there. So that's the point of Gesicki is with tight end, you wanted someone with true versatility in terms of where he could line up. Hunter Henry's got a bit of that, but even when he's split out, he's not really there to be the main person getting the targets. Whereas if Gesicki's the split out guy, you're like, okay, there's a decent chance this guy's going to get a target just because he's got such insane ball skills. And Henry's good, but Gesicki is just at a completely different level.
Yeah, it's a different type of player. And again, I think the first significant offensive upgrade I think you can put here. And I know you might argue Juju's a big upgrade over Jacoby Myers, but I think, it can be viewed as somewhat of a lateral move with two guys with varying skill sets. But in terms of overall production, I don't think Juju's going to blow our doors off and do anything well beyond what Jacoby was doing in terms of production, just different types of
the role. That slot role is where Juju is a significant upgrade.
Yes, in the role, it's a slight difference. But you are now at this point, again, no one knows who's done and everyone gets, bent out of shape-ish about why aren't they doing anything? Why did trade this and trade this and trade that? And you understand the patient approach here, but let's just say, and again, we're gonna push off the idea of Zay Flowers for now, just for now, because I know that's always going to come up.
Yeah, I've beaten that one to death. It's fine.
Yeah. And do Patriots still need to add here?
Need is a strong word because I'm confident that they could walk into the season and have at least a top 12 offense just because Bill O'Brien is so good and he's got good players. But of course, when you have that alpha who teams are saying, like, it's not ifs, ands, or buts, like we cannot cover this guy with our number 2, we have to double him, where it's really someone that scares you going into the game plans. Now, Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, they're the kind of guys that could scare defenses just because of the alignments they play, where you're not going to put a corner on them, and there just aren't many cover linebackers or safeties in the league. So that's where I think you kind of get some of that. But you would also like a receiver who, hey, if you're getting covered by Tre'Davious White, you're still going to be competitive. And, instead of it being, you get 4 targets and you only catch 1 because you can't get away from White or he's breaking everything up, you get someone who's maybe catching 2 of those 4, 3 of those 4, and it's actually competitive. So do they need to add? I don't think they need to, but would it help significantly if they did? Absolutely. But that's pretty much what you could say for any team that gets DeAndre Hopkins or Jerry Jeudy. They're going to help you significantly and kind of supercharge your offense.
Here's my 2 cents. Yes, I'm with you exactly there. That's exactly where I'm at. I think you're pretty mid right now, and meaning like, and I don't think adding more mid guys changes anything. Which is to say, if you have Parker, Bourne, and Juju, if you add another one in their category, again, 2/3s, whatever you want to call these guys in terms of how they operate in your offense. I think they're kind of like low 2, high 3s almost across the board, at least compared with the teams that have legit weapons on, multiple receivers. You're never going to compare to like Waddle and, and Tyreek or T. Higgins and, Jamar. Those are guys on a different planet. That's 2 1s, not a 1 and a 2, but even a legit 2, again, maybe you've got it in Juju. I'm not really sure, but they are pretty mid right now. I don't think adding another does anything. I think you have enough people to do stuff with, but the only thing that really matters right now is adding a legit number 1 receiver. If you can do that. If you can't, I don't know that you need to keep adding people who are going to play sparingly X, Y, and Z, because I think you've got enough of those guys right now. I think you're happy with the room, but you don't have that guy.
Yeah, and of course, I think you're just more secure when you know you've got a true number one. But one thing I think people tend to overlook is everyone gets mad when it's like, oh, the Patriots have a bunch of number two receivers, borderline number threes. But right now, I think that you could confidently, with different personnel groups, you could consistently put 5 skill players on the field who are legitimate mismatches somewhere. And I can't really think of any secondaries that could put 5 defensive backs out there and say, we are confident in every single one of these people to win a one-on-one matchup. That's where the offensive coordinator comes into play, where you predict what the coverage is going to be based on the situation. You line your guys up where they can have the most success. And then having the number 2 ain't that bad because he's going against against a third string cornerback, the strong safety who can't cover but is really good in the box. You know what I mean? There are very, very few, if any, defenses right now who would be able to match up with every single one of their receivers on a regular basis. And again, I think that's where I say it's not that much of a concern. But again, when you're facing the Dolphins and then your guys lined up against X Howard, can he at least compete, or is it okay? We have no guys who can even compete with Ramsey and Howard, and that's when it restricts the field. And it's like, all right, we already know they're going to throw inside. So to your point, I'm saying if you have that guy outside or inside or wherever who can dictate coverage, that's where it gets easier versus having a bunch of number 2s against the rare secondary with multiple number 1s, and then it's like, well, crap, we can only really throw to 3 people of the 5 we have on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think, I'm not trying to knock it too much. It's just a matter of like, is there any defensive coordinator that's game planning for anyone on the Patriots right now?
Bill O'Brien, like that's the point. They're game
I
planning.
I know. But that's the thing is like, that's more the argument that things will be better just because the coaching is good, And again, we're talking about a guy who hasn't done this job at the NFL level for a long time. It's not an automatic, but everybody obviously is excited and bullish about the prospects of somebody coming in here who knows what they're doing and having a grown up in the room, which they didn't last year. But just again, in a vacuum, you can't have the conversation if it's like, it doesn't matter how good they are, the coaching is good. That's fine. If that's the thing. But I think that's actually how Belichick is attacking the offseason a little bit, Taylor, that we've now there's a big mea culpa being put out there with this acknowledgement that it was on me. I did a bad thing with the coaching, but now that we got good coaching again, I'm going to go back to doing what I do, and that's stacking depth, building the middle class of my roster and getting the people that I can put in the right spot to do things, but not acquiring alpha playmakers on either side of the ball, which right now, if you look at both sides of the ball, how many alpha playmakers are there? Maybe Judon, maybe Uche is trending there. Maybe Duggar is trending there. There's nobody on offense that's an alpha A++ blue chip prospect right now. So you have a lot of kind of mid guys that you're going to approach it the way you've approached things in the past, which is good coaching, people that listen, they know what they want to do, put them in the right place to succeed, and we run it the Patriot way.
Okay, sure. I think it's a mischaracterization to say that Bill is just like, oh, I have O'Brien, like I'm set. I think that having O'Brien gives you a lot of, it gives you a huge sigh of relief. And I don't think the whole like, oh, he was in college matters, because he went to Penn State, then came to the Texans and immediately made them a good team when they didn't really have a ton of really good talent. Like they had D-Hop, they had Watson when he was young, they had Fuller, but Fuller couldn't stay healthy. They had no run game. The offensive line was terrible. And the fact that the Texans were competing every single season when O'Brien was there, despite the fact that he spent all that time at Penn State, where actually, fun fact, he recruited Gesicki to Penn State and then left.
And didn't coach him,
funny.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. So that's full circle moment. But so I think Bill O'Brien legitimately does tell you, okay, if we have average starters, we are going to win 10 games. Now, I would understand the argument that they're not trying hard enough to get the alpha if we didn't hear that they went to OBJ's workout, that they've been in on Jerry Jeudy this entire time. They are just waiting so another team doesn't swindle them. Just like every single person they've signed this offseason has been a below market
which is why
who's a star player.
You're right. Which is why, again, you feel differently today than you felt yesterday, and you have to see the whole process play out. Right now, you can only deal with the information you have, which is, right now, the overall approach looks to be to acquire those types of players, not to go in, not to make that splash. 2 years ago, they felt they needed to make a splash. They just splashed at the wrong people. So the mentality this year is less dire than it was then when they really felt like they needed to fix their offense and they threw a lot of money at the problem. They just they spent poorly. This year, that's not the same approach. That's all I'm saying is they didn't run out the gate. But right now, you're right. There's a bit of a waiting game. You've got teams that are playing coy. Do I want to trade him? Oh, I don't know. Maybe. It's got to be a first. You know what? Like, leak this out here. I'm not interested in trading them at all anymore. So, again, there's games going on. The Judy stuff is getting ridiculous. Now Denver's thinking of keeping them. Like, no, you're not. Like, if you were going to trade them, you're going to trade them. But they're waiting it out. Patriots are waiting it out, such and such. But you're also getting teams that are going to have to cut guys who they can't afford to, and more guys might fall through the cracks to you. So, again, more things open up.
Very long process. And then especially
it's a long process, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
only gauging it by now. If you wanted something bad enough, we've seen in the past that they're not afraid to go out and get it, even if they overspend. They didn't do that this year. That is, to me,
because of the market.
Right, but that to me is what. But again, they didn't go out and get A++ guys. It's not like Nelson Aguilar was setting the world on fire and would have had. They paid 20% more, 30% more than anybody else would have paid. They just wanted it done. This is,
and I think that was one of those
approach.
Sorry. And I think that was one of those situations where, like we said, they expected the tight ends. Like when you look at the contracts, Johnny and Henry were the ones who got $14 million on the cap, and then the other guys were making like 11. So it was, Aguilar was making 11. I think Bourne was making like 6 or 7. So it was pretty clear where they were going. They were saying, we're going to run this offense through our tight ends, and then the receivers don't have to be great. They also still had Jacoby, who was their true number one. So I'm sure they felt better if it's like, okay, that's our big three. So yeah, I understand the approach is different. But also, when you look around the playoff landscape, it's now you don't necessarily need a top quarterback, but you do need a top receiver to compete in the playoffs. But when you look at how teams are acquiring these players, it's either through the draft. When you look at Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, like those guys were drafted and developed by those teams because they scout receivers well and they did what they were supposed to do on that end. Now, how else can you get them? You can be the Dolphins and pay a ton of money for someone like Tyreek Hill, or like the Bills where they gave up a ton for Diggs and then paid him. But those are also receivers who have, when you acquire a player, you hope they at least have 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like, that's why when it comes to like DeAndre Hopkins, where you're going to pay him, it's okay. But do we really think he's going to be DeAndre Hopkins for 3 more years? It's just not that likely. So then it's okay. Jerry Jeudy is the most likely option. Even Jerry Jeudy's asking prices are going down. He was originally supposed to be had for a 1+. Now people are talking about a 2 and a player. So this is where the waiting game comes into play, where like there's no incentive for the Broncos or the Patriots to make this trade before the draft. Neither of them are cash strapped. They don't really need to. So it might take even longer. The Patriots could say, hey, unless there's one team, like just call us if one team has an offer that you're saying, yes, we will do this if you're not willing to match. When it comes to that, if you see that Jerry Jeudy got traded for a 2nd or a 3rd and like a crap player, then you start getting mad at Bill and you're like, all right, dude, you weren't being nearly aggressive enough, and I will be fully on board. Because even Matt Gross said they need to be aggressive in the pursuit of receivers. But to that same point, they try. They're just, the jury is out on Tyquan Thornton. His ceiling looks like it could still be pretty high. He had moments, like we said, it was inconsistent, but he's getting bigger. He's doing the right things so far. See how it translates to the field. But they're making the attempts. N'Keal Harry was drafted in the 1st round a while ago. Again, terrible. Did not work out. They need to improve
some attempts, but that's recent. Yes,
right, but that's
really
what I'm saying. Like there's not a lot of players they can. T. Higgins, we were talking about T. Higgins forever. Like early, or like around the Super Bowl. Like maybe they can get him. The Bengals aren't giving up T. Higgins because they know they have 2 number ones. Burrow's going to sign a big contract, but he will always take some off the cap to make sure they can afford other guys. He's one of those quarterbacks where the franchise guys are never going to. The smart ones are never going to put their teams in cap hell.
No, it's silly.
There's just not a lot of options.
No, you're right. And that's a fair way to look at it. This is a good conversation. I want to continue it. I want to tell everybody again at home real quick just about our sponsor. And again, listen up, Massachusetts. You live in Massachusetts, you know by now. It was a week ago today that sports betting was made legal in the Bay State, and CLNS Media has partnered with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. New customers in Mass get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 wager. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Finally, bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props, all that stuff. I've downloaded the app. It's really, really easy to use, really easy to follow. Don't miss your chance. $200 bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. Do we need to tell you, you have to be 21 or older and present in the state of Massachusetts. $10 minimum first deposit is required. The bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire in 14 days. Restrictions do apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope and help is here. Go to gamblinghelplinema.org. Once again, gamblinghelplinema.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. So we were talking about it, and again, speaking of, and let's see if I can find it. Hold on, I want to pull something up here, and I'll get back to you, Taylor, in just 1 second. Speaking of FanDuel, our CLNS wagering FanDuel guy. Let me see if I can share screen here.
Patriots tried out CJ Moore, a potential personal protector, which means Cody Davis probably retiring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me put this up here, see if I can find it. Look at that. You see this?
Oh, that's pretty.
See what Mike Cadlick did?
That's pretty. Oh, look at that.
Put his money where his mouth is. Indeed.
My guy.
Okay. That's what he did. He put a bet down, put a wager down.
That's how it's done.
That's how it's done. On the Patriots to go corner, which is interesting, and that's where we'll kind of segue here. Why would he think that? Why would he think that?
Honestly, I think it made a lot of sense.
Well, because the Patriots cut Jalen Mills today, which was a surprise.
I played that terribly.
It's fine.
We're building. It's week one. It's just
anytime I get a chance to do my wind horse, I can't not do. Why would Cadlick do that? So again, as you saw, that's kind of the thing here. Jalen Mills gone, which is interesting because, we've been trying to figure it out, right? That they drafted, they got a bunch of O tackles, right? Depth guys. And it's like, okay, you think they're going to just try to swing it with what they've got, just piece it together? I don't know. I wonder. Or does that mean they've got their depth and they're going to swing big? Then they get Juju, rumored to be in on Judy or Hopkins or whatever also. And okay, maybe they'll just trade or sign receivers and then won't draft that. And then you see the cornerback situation. You're like, well, they spent a couple of draft picks last year and they were okay. So maybe they don't need corner. But now you go right out and you cut the guy who started your season as the number 1 corner on your roster, who was only $6 million on the books this year. What am I missing? What happened here? What changed in terms of how they view Jalen Mills? What's the deal? What's the deal here?
I'm sure they still like the person and the player. Because he was a really solid cornerback too. He really only had one bad game as a Patriot, and it was the one when they played the Cowboys, where he kind of got burned by CeeDee Lamb. Not all of it was his fault. Some of them I think were just bad play calls. But he was a solid player. Now, the issue with Mills, he didn't finish either of the last 2 seasons. Now, it popped up 2 years ago in the wildcard game against the Bills because they just got smoked. You had to have Juwan Williams out there, who didn't play as terribly as I think you'd expect Juwan Williams to play against the Bills, but just it wasn't the same. And then this year, you saw against the Bengals, Jalen Mills was their only cornerback who was 6 feet tall, couldn't play that game, and you saw Marcus Jones just getting mossed because he shouldn't really have been out there against those guys.
Right.
So I think, especially when you talk about, Jalen Mills, he's very versatile. He could have been your new free safety. Devin McCourty hadn't missed a game in years. One of the most important things about a free safety is they need to be there on a consistent basis because that's your last line of defense. Now, if your guy is not going to be there for the last part of the season, that means that guys have to be out of position. And then, especially if there's a lack of familiarity with where they are, if Kyle Duggar's been in the box 80% of the time and then you have him at free safety, it's not really going to be great because he just doesn't have the reps. The history there, sure. But I wasn't really surprised. I've always seen Jalen Mills kind of in that Devontae Parker category where it's a luxury if they're healthy and it's great and they can be solid contributors. Parker can be a great contributor when he's healthy, but both guys just can't be penciled in for 10 games in a season. You can't. And I think that was the biggest factor. And they probably are just looking for consistency with his role where he was their big corner, so to speak.
Yep. Yes. There's no doubt about that. But it's again, without something up your sleeve next, you're just leaving a hole. So that's what I don't fully get. Is, maybe that's the direction you want to go, or you need to free up money to do something right now. But that's not the case. You don't think, unless there's something coming down the road that we're not super certain of. I'm not sure, outside of giving Mills a chance to go find himself a home, which is a courtesy.
I think that's
player.
A big part of it as well. Yeah, I think that just shows he wasn't in their plans.
And I know teams that do business that way, and I think the players like when you do that. But it's just strange to me when you don't really know exactly what you're going to do there. Like, who are you open? If you don't address it right now, you're opening the season. How?
Right, but you needed to address it anyway. Even if
but how are you opening the season right now? If you don't get, if you don't,
Rock Ya-Sin, my guy Rock Ya-Sin is still on the market.
That's what I mean. He's still out there, but without another move right now with the personnel you have, what are you doing?
Well, it's like we were literally talking about this with tight ends yesterday, and then I woke up and Gesicki got signed. They're waiting for these guys' contract, what they want for their contract numbers to go down. Because every single day that passes, all of the numbers that they're asking for go down $500,000, $1 million, So especially the cornerback market's been pretty quiet. It wasn't great to begin with. I can't think of any big names that were signed that I was like, damn, the Patriots really missed out on that guy. Jamel Dean went home for a discount. Like that was never going to happen.
Bradbury, and then Slay was available. Those are the guys.
All those guys went home.
They all went home. They all went home.
There was clearly a desire for them to stick around. So it was going to be a need regardless. We've been saying that since way before this happened. So I think they either get one of the cheaper options that's just a good scheme fit as a bigger corner, or the draft is stocked. Like all these positions where we say, oh yeah, they have a hole where it could really take them to another level if they got this. Well, they have quality starters who are at least not going to be liabilities. And now they have the flexibility to get the best player available rather than like last year where you arguably reached on Cole Strange. Now, if he's good, it doesn't really matter if you reach because, you get a Pro Bowl player. It doesn't really matter where in the first round you got him. But it still did feel like, well, we don't have a left guard. If we lose this guy and there's no one else who can start, then we're screwed. Yeah. And they got Strange, and even he still struggled his rookie year.
Oh, Cam Sutton was the other one I was thinking.
Yeah, so what they're setting themselves up for, what they have set themselves up for, is to get the best player available at those premium positions. Cornerback, receiver, what was the other one? Tackle. So
there's only 3 positions you should ever draft in the first round, unless you get a Micah Parsons level playmaker, somewhere else, and that's corner, tackle, and receiver. Or quarterback again if you're in the need here. Patriots not continue to, but that's what's going to kill people over the Cole Strange thing. You find guards on the friggin' street. You find them in the 4th round. Patriots have hit with guards all over the draft, okay? And I know Logan Mankins was a surprise first-round pick who ended up being outstanding, but unless you're getting the greatest guard ever, that pick last year is so freaking perplexing still, based off of what you said, which is your premium talent at the positions that are premium positions. You're talking about the most valuable positions on the field. The tackle, the cornerback, and the receiver position. You've got to get those things in the first round. Getting really good talent is much harder. Oh, you get guys who can run, but they're a little undersized, but maybe they'll make good slot guys or this or that. To get the friggin' alphas, you've got to spend first round draft capital on them. So again, that 14 pick's got to land one of those 3 things.
Right. But at the same time, obviously premium positions, I'm not against that strategy. I do think that's the smartest way to go. But each of the rounds has a certain thing you're looking for. Mike Nwenu was not drafted in the 6th round because they knew he was going to be a starter. They had injuries and he was forced to start. A lot of the finds they have aren't supposed to end up being
But Tooney, Mason, you're finding, though, again, you're getting Pro Bowl guards who are signing premium contracts when they leave here in the later rounds here all over the place. You've proven
But I think that
this.
tells you what they thought of Cole Strange. Now, even looking at him last year, he had his struggles. But when you watch him, if the guy can put on 10, 15, 20 pounds where he can just hold up better against power, and that doesn't have to be something he kind of overcompensating for, he can be that Joe Tooney, where someone who set the market, like you said, where the left guard is usually a position that gets help in pass protection, just because the three technique, who's usually the most explosive rusher, tends to line up on the right. So they're like Mike Onwenu. He's someone who's left on an island a lot. But if you have the versatility to say, okay, just based on scheme, like we got Aaron Donald over Mike Onwenu, he's fantastic. We still need to commit more attention there just because this is a Hall of Famer. Then you have the security of, with a pocket passer, having a left guard who never needs any help and can hold up against one-on-one rushers. He's extremely intelligent. He's one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the history of the sport. So, I know we're going back in Cole Strange. That's not really the hot topic right now. But I think with that pick, it shows you that they thought he could be a potential Hall of Fame player.
I'm pretty hot right now, so it's hot to me. Okay? I'm still mad about it.
Fair enough.
No, it's fine. But again, you do wonder now which position, and I put up Cadlick's bet there. He's going corner. Which position makes the most sense now early in that draft, assuming, and again, they've spent some draft capital here, as you said. They drafted Isaiah Wynn as a tackle, guard / tackle. Didn't quite work out. But this is the area you've got to go get these guys. And typically they have in the past. They did it with Nate Solder. Like when they need that guy, they go get that guy if they're available. And as you mentioned, I think you tweeted this too. With the Orlando Brown move to Cincy, that might be another tackle taken off the board. Yeah. Right. So it's just yeah. And then now you're looking at, there's another potential tackle out there, which is Jonah Williams. Now, this again could be something that you can get simply for whatever it costs them. I believe he's only here. This is his final year of his contract. Correct?
So he signed his 5th-year option.
His 5th-year option.
$15 million. Yeah.
$15 million 5th-year option. Could you bring somebody in and rework them? Maybe, but I don't think he's going to want to do that. He's going to want that big fat second deal. So he plays this one out. This is a one and done, which means if he wants out, this is something you can get just for money. It's another Band-Aid, which is if you want to pay what it's going to cost to keep him on the roster, you can probably get this for a pick that's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, especially because the Bengals have no leverage. Like all their businesses out there, they can't demand the 3rd-round pick. He's $15 million. You got to, like you said, there's no reason that he's going to be had for anything that's really that egregious. I talked to my buddy Mike. He's very smart. He's great with the Bills. I'll look up his handle so you guys can follow it. But he was saying that a lot of Jonah Williams' sack numbers from last year are misleading because he apparently just had a terrible game against Micah Parsons, which isn't like the worst indication. If he's not getting help and he's getting beat that bad, then it's partially on scheme. There was one other player he faced where a lot of the sack numbers came early and he was good after that. Now, at the same time,
all of Cincy's line, that was all of Cincy's line again.
Right.
They completely changed in the second half of the season.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's a move where if you get him for a good price and they're willing to take on the $15 million, they got the space. If there's no one else that you're thinking of bringing in who would take up a lot of that capital, then he's a really quick upgrade over Riley Reif. You kind of knock Trent Brown over to the right side and then put Jonah on the left. But at the same time, it's tough because I'd like to see them draft a tackle in the 1st round because I think that's where they're going to get a plug-and-play type of guy, or at least someone who maybe takes a month and then can start playing significant snaps for you. But at the same time, they need corner, so who knows how, although, again, it is deep there, who knows how early they attack that. They have the flexibility that they can still send out the Joneses as their top 3 cornerbacks, Miles Bryant, if they want, if he doesn't, see more free safety and see what goes on there. They have a little more space to get somebody who'd be more of a role player. But yeah, I don't think Jonah Williams would move the needle huge for me, but it's a nice option to have where you have 2, mildly above average to like above average guys at tackle rather than one above average guy in Trent Brown and then someone who's going to be solid but not anything special in Riley Reif just because of how old he is.
Is anything currently on the roster or Jonah sorry, 1 second. Just trying to find something here. Is anyone currently on the roster right now who they've signed as at the tackle position or Jonah Williams an upgrade over Isaiah Wynn, who we all know was inconsistent and probably the number one kind of, target of fans' ire, during stages last year?
Yeah. One, people lay off Isaiah Wynn. It's so it's so annoying seeing
Jonah
people
Williams, by the
actually
way,
be.
61st ranked tackle in PFF grade last year.
Do
And
not
again,
trust PFF
I
grades for offensive linemen. Do not.
I know
I
that.
watched the. I know. I can literally see which plays they grade poorly or not. I can see them. That is not a. I have a lot of respect for PFF. What they do is not easy, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
that is not a good indication of how good someone is.
yeah.
But back to lay off Isaiah Wynn. He's a person. If you want to hate him on your own time, do that. But like, don't at him. That's so weird. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. But yeah, no, he wasn't good last season, and
Can
there's
you
no way
tell them?
around
Can
that.
you tell them to do the same with me?
Yeah, lay off my boss, guys. I mean, like not quite as much, maybe like just a little less. You
Tell
don't
the
have to stop
tell the
cold
people
turkey.
on the Garden Report to do it to lay off me. I'm a human. When you cut me, do I not bleed? No, I hear you. The win hate got ridiculous. It's just
Yeah.
a bummer because you draft a guy, you think you've got it locked down, and you don't, and you didn't, and now you've got to address it again, and you might have anyway because you might have just lost him based on not being able to afford a massive, I mean, if he was an all pro level tackle, he might have left you anyway. But it's it really messed up huge chunks of the season last year. Not feeling good about your protection.
And the funny thing is, he actually was fantastic at guard. It was one of the best games he's ever had as a Patriot against the Colts. He got beat twice, but it was on a run against Grover Stewart, who is phenomenal as a run stopper, and then against DeForest Buckner, who is an absolute freak and one of the most insane athletes in football. But again, they switched him to the right side, which was not a good fit for him as someone who's already undersized and struggles against power. And the right side's where you get a lot of the power rushers because that's where most runs go. So they have to be sturdier guys. But then, I mean, beyond the fit and the fact that he did struggle, the team didn't help him at times. Like against the Packers, I thought he should have gotten more help than he did. Then they benched him, put in Marcus Cannon, and gave him help on every single drop back, I thought that was pretty odd. But at the same time, Wynn had a bunch of mental mistakes where as much as you can say, yeah, the coaches didn't put him in great position, you have to execute. You have to be smart. You can't put the team behind the chains. And he did that consistently. And he's not Trent Brown, where you can have a bad year and people will say, all right, we're going to give you another shot. Like Isaiah Wynn has been inconsistent for a while, whether it's his availability,
Yeah.
his level of play, his mental, I don't want to say mental toughness, because I do think he's a mentally tough player, but in terms of just not making the mistakes, like the false starts and everything just got brutal. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone's an upgrade over Win just because I think you're going to get more consistency than you got from him. Although, I mean, the talent that he has isn't close to anybody they have on the roster outside of Trent Brown.
Yeah. So that's where you're stuck here with the positions here. You've got some depth here at tackle. And again, if this is the best player you're going to potentially acquire by going out and making a trade here, you're saying you don't think that this is a massive upgrade over what they currently have, and it's probably not worth it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. So we're passing here. We're kind of back into still again here as a story that still exists. I think this might be, and again, between this and Hopkins, this might be the last thing on the table, right? Like this might be the last thing worth doing in a splashy sort of thing until you get to the draft at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah. Especially, I hadn't seen Jerry Jeudy tape like extensively in a while. Man, the more I watched it,
You liked it?
especially the first round pick, it was just still too rich for my blood because you could still get a difference making receiver with 14 and you don't have to pay him as much. But for second round pick, yeah, man, he's good. And it's not just that he's not just fast. He's not just an inside guy. I've seen people say that he and Juju overlap, which I don't think is true. I think they're very different players. I think Jeudy is someone who you think, oh, he can't play outside because he's a bit of a more of a thin receiver, but he plays with that alpha mentality where he'll go up and get the ball right over your head. And he's a fantastic route runner. He's very deceitful. So some of the better press corners may be able to give him a hard time, but players don't face press coverage as often as fans seem to think. If you're facing press, it's always man coverage, unless it's obviously cover two, which isn't really press. It's more of a redirect. But if someone's paying you in press, a good offensive coordinator, if they want to get you the ball, will put you in motion and make sure that you can't get touched. And Jerry Judy's the kind of guy where if you give him the Edelman, motion him behind Hunter Henry and get a pick where he's wide open, that dude is going to house it a lot of the time. So if he can be had for, like I said, second in a player, it's not even close. Like he is your new alpha, and I think that O'Brien would have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah. So we have that as probably the last thing. And again, the Gesicki trade today, I think definitely made people feel a little bit, a little bit fuzzy that the Pats are doing something, kind of moving the needle in the other direction. Another move here, um, linebacker Chris Board. I don't know if you
Mhm.
have more than what do you have to say? You've always got stuff
No,
to say.
I like Board. So
I
Belichick
am
actually
bored.
last season.
Okay.
Board. Okay, well here, okay.
No, I'm
Belichick
just
called him
kidding.
the
Go
best
ahead. Go
special
ahead.
teamer they played all last season. And like it's someone that you never hear about. Even usually there's pro bowlers and all pros where you're like, oh yeah, I know that really good special teamer who's always in Hawaii or wherever the Pro Bowl is. I don't even know at this point. But he's really athletic. Like this dude is a demon. If you want to check out my Twitter, look up at tkyles39 Chris Board. The guy's a freak athlete. He's very fast. He's rangy. He's a good tackler and he's tough. There were a bunch of plays where he would be on kickoff coverage and he would go through multiple blockers and then still make the tackle. Like he's an impact player, and their special teams were not very good last year. They gave up more return touchdowns, I believe, than any other team, and I'm not particularly sure it was close. You don't give up that many in a season. I don't want to shoot numbers out of my butt, but this is a guy who legitimately could be a difference maker, and he showed flashes as a coverage player. He usually only played at the end of the game. Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to have a huge role on defense, but when you think of that Mac Wilson role, and remember he got relegated to special teams, so it's no guarantee that they have that guy on the roster. But
Right.
he's that sub package guy where you can have him spy mobile quarterbacks. You can have him blitz just because of how athletic he is. He's really good coming downhill, especially if you get him matched up on a skill player like a tight end. He had a fumble last year. He had a pass breakup against TJ Hawkinson when the offense actually tried to pick him and he slid underneath and was able to affect the play. So this is a sneaky, exciting signing if you're a hardcore special teams guy and just want them to not give up multiple receiving or return touchdowns in a game like they did against Buffalo. I don't think that happens if you have Chris Board. So I'm sure not a lot of people are going to really sniff at this one, but look at my Twitter if you want a reason to be excited. This was a very good signing.
Yeah, and look, and so again, I'm going back to the kind of Belichick, philosophy in terms of team building. I do believe that now with the coaching in place, you are kind of looking at that three phases sort of thing, and like, if anything, last year showed you how far from the norm things were regarding this team, it was their special teams play, ranking. And thanks to Ahmed for this, dead last in DVOA
There you
here
go.
in the
There you go.
dead last in the NFL after having, just consistently top units and always it being a strength of theirs. And some of it had to do with injuries to kickers, punters, and it's always stinks. The punting situation was so freaking bad, but their coverage was
Oh god, that was like a college
horrible.
punting situation, literally.
Yeah, it's right. Exactly. I mean, exactly. It was so bad. So that's something that needs to be addressed as well, which I'm sure they will. Well, we haven't really talked much about it, but it's definitely something that they will get to, I believe. 3 kick return touchdowns 2022 after 3 in the previous 20 years. That's got to tell you something about just how bad things were here for the Patriots. So something they addressed little bit at a time, incremental gains here as we go. Gesicki, I definitely think is something that got people a little bit juiced. So that's the slight improvement in the first, I think, legit upgrade on the offense that you're seeing. Jonnu Smith out. You're out from under his contract starting next year, still eating some dead cap space here. You bring in Gesicki. You have another weapon to play with. We'll see what else happens in terms of, whether or not there's anything, to come down the road. We'll be here all weekend long in case there is, and make sure to kind of jump on here and break it down. We've been live every day this week. Many of you, I notice your names in the chat, have been here with us. So thank you guys so much. It's really been fun to hang out. For those of you who are meeting Taylor for the first time, great first week for Taylor here on the Patriots beat at CLNS Media Network. This was good. I think he's got a Gesicki write-up coming at CLNS Media in a little bit. You can check that out, looking at some tape and a little bit of breakdown, breaking down exactly what it is that he's going to bring to the Patriots offense. And of course, we'll have you covered throughout, eternity, honestly, throughout the rest of time, but certainly throughout the rest of this offseason and free agency period. And then you're really going to want to stick with us and Taylor during the draft as we start to ramp up our draft coverage and start looking at some of these enticing prospects that the Patriots could bring in here. It's not just going to be a Zay Flowers profile daily. We will talk about other prospects, I guarantee. Check out fanduel.com/Boston. Again, if you're into this sort of thing and you want to kind of lay some action here, it's tournament time. As we said, Massachusetts betting has been legal now for a week. So again, this is a great place to go. FanDuel.com/Boston. 200 bonus bets, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, as long as you make a $5 wager and a $10 deposit. So go check that out. Please go through this URL, FanDuel.com/Boston. If you do, that way they know we sent you. The more signups we send, the happier they are. The more free content we can continue to bring you guys, which is what we always want to do. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us all week long. We will jump on here immediately. I promise. If there is breaking news. So kind of, keep it here. Hit that little kind of bell for your notifications. You may miss the breaking news, but let that bell notify you. We will go live if something happens. We've got a wide open slate the rest of the night here. So we'll jump back in here. But until then, we will see you guys next time. Take care.